This season will go down as one of the most historic winters in recent memory. Not only were we dealing with the uncertainty of the coronavirus, we also had an extremely low snowfall early on in the season, which then led to some super high avalanche danger in February and even into March. You know, at the end of the whole thing, I think it's really safe to say that this season was a massive success.
Just a skosh.
I spent the better part of about 6 months this summer building out my Sprinter van with the hopes of being able to take it traveling both in the winter and in the summer. How do you think it's going, Joe?
We're making progress little by little into the burning the midnight oil here.
All right, let's. So are we facing on the whole?
Just on this road.
Ah, yeah. I got you, because we're not going to see it.
Right.
It was honestly a huge undertaking because I really didn't know what I was doing for the most part, and I slowly just kept taking projects as they came, and slowly but surely each project slowly kept getting knocked off, and before I knew it I was looking down at the last few items of the van build just about a month or two before winter actually hit. As much as I thought I was prepared for winter in the van, I really couldn't have been any further from it. I did the insulation, I did the heater, I took care of the water, but there were some certain things that I just feel like I could have never known without just immersing the van or Luna in those colder temperatures. One of the biggest things that I struggled with early on, which I quickly had to find a fix for, was just my batteries. I really had to figure out a way to keep these batteries warm enough to where they would charge and discharge appropriately when I'm in 0, 25, just below freezing sort of weather.
Currently we have the shiplap off of the battery bank here, and what we're going to be trying to do is running this heater duct here from our heater underneath the seat. This will fit right over the top like this, and try to run it down, and we're going to end up drilling a hole right into the side of the shiplap, which will then basically pump the heat directly down into the battery bank for now. And hopefully this will be able to keep some heat in there and just get us that enough temperature for it to be able to charge, and then I would remove the duct off the heater and it would just blow heat like me.
It seemed like a good fix in theory, on paper, and really the only way to test this out was to actually put it to use. And as much thinking and sort of wondering what could happen and how's this gonna work, you know, at some point, you just gotta get in and go. The first stop was Jackson Hole. I feel like they were the only place early on in the season that had any sort of formidable snow base. Jackson Hole is just one of those places when you come into the zone and you are just met with the Grand Tetons, which just seem to shoot essentially out from the ground straight up in the air to around 13,000 feet. It's just a sight that just makes you feel some sort of way. It's hard to explain without ever actually being there and witnessing these huge peaks yourself.
Finally made it up here to the aerial tram. It reduced the capacity by about 75%. Usually this thing can fit about 100 people, but because of COVID and stuff, we're only putting about 25. But what the really cool part about the tram is that
it takes you from the bottom of the resort up about 4,000 feet to the very top of Jackson Hole. So you could be standing in the parking lot and about 10 minutes later you can be at the very top of Jackson Hole overlooking the entire valley of Jackson and just feeling like you're on the top of the world with about 4,000 feet of vertical in front of you to ski till you get back down.
about -4 degrees last night, and showing now it's about 2 degrees. But either way, it was a very, very cold night, and the van held up just fine.
For me, I'm always looking for a hike. I'm always looking for how I can get to some terrain that might not be as accessible as just getting off the run and skiing down.
After shredding a few laps here in the morning, I decided to do a short little hike up what's called the Casper head wall. Pretty short, but it is kind of steep.
Down below you, you see the tram going up the ridgeline with Jackson way in the distance off in the valley, and it just seems like you're surrounded by these monoliths and these rock formations. And when you combine that with a bluebird day and just some picturesque white snow, it really makes the hike and everything else worth it. And it's situations like that that just make me really appreciate what skiing is all about. There's a thing around here in the Wasatch called the Powder Panic. They were projecting the first storm of the season, the first real Utah storm. And it was on a Friday night with fresh snow to be woken up to on a Saturday morning. So you have this insane powder panic, and then you have this insane powder panic on a weekend, which just leads to madness. There's a very important strategy that goes into how you are going to get fresh tracks, how are you going to get to the lift before the line becomes so massive that everything gets skied up. So you can either try to run the crescent lift up, which will then be a direct access down to the McConkey's lift, or you can take the payday lift to Bonanza and then Bonanza to McConkey's. So it's this trade-off and essentially a gamble as to, hey, are we gonna wait in a longer line in the hopes that we just need to go up one lift, or are we gonna take the chance to go 2 lines and try to be there quicker than all the people at Crescent? This is one of those times where I took the risk.
I think our strategy worked out pretty well, and we're finally up to McConkey's. We're about like halfway up the lift, and we skied right into the lift line, didn't wait at all. So I think our move was the right one.
At this point, you really only have 1 or 2, maybe 3 laps before the line is gonna get so long and all that fresh snow is gonna start to get tracked out. So the game doesn't end where now you're skiing fresh snow, but you need to make sure you don't fall, you don't lose your ski, you're able to get back to that lift line before it gets so outrageously long that the experience is over. There's a fine window, and we nailed it.
Underneath, you gotta be careful. There's huge moguls underneath. We got just such perfect, fluffy, dry Utah snow, man. So good.
There's some moments in my ski career, my ski life, that I will really remember forever, and this rope drop is probably going to be one of them. I have been involved in this race to Jupiter several times before, to where Ski Patrol drops the rope to the access and people kind of subconsciously and inexplicitly race their way to see who can get to the chair first, who can score those first tracks up at Jupiter.
We're currently waiting at the top of Pioneer. They haven't opened Jupiter yet, so what happens is a lot of fun is basically people are waiting down at the rope, people are waiting at the top here, and then they'll drop the rope and everyone kind of rushes down to Jupiter.
And this was just one of those moments amplified by the powder panic with the first time Jupiter being open, that when they dropped that rope, I think just all bets, all rules were off.
Oh my God.
See, I made the mistake to get a running start down into the actual access point, just thinking that there would be an open channel for me to go to. But as soon as I dropped in, when you have that many people trying to funnel into a gap this big, there's only so much volume that can go through at once. I knew that skating and just pushing your way past people were the only way to sort of make up for all that time. The challenge in a situation like that is you have people right on your left, right on your right, that you don't even have enough room to actually pole plant and push because you're gonna stab the person behind you, right? It's actually communicating with people you don't even know.
Oh, sorry. This is madness. On your left, sorry, man. On your left, buddy. Yeah, for you guys on the right. Darn it. Heads up. Hey, on your right. You're alright. You're good? Yep. You got it. Right on your right, man.
And I wasn't the first chair, but I was able to ski right into the line, and let's just say I was able to get the first tracks right down the middle of Main Bowl off the shark fin rock of the season. So I'd say it's a win. One of the most notable events of this winter was probably the storm we had in February. I think by the end of the 7-day storm cycle, places up in Little Cottonwood Canyon got about 100 inches of snow in 7 days. Ironically, in the biggest storm cycle of the season, I headed down to Florida. I found myself in the small town of Ocala, Florida, where it was about 75, 80 degrees and humid. It was a huge change from the weekends before of chasing snow and being in cold temperatures that I was used to, really.
This is a national level Florida Winter Tour event is what it's called. And so there are kids from all over the country who are here racing. And with go-karting, it's kind of every kid is trying to get to that next level, which would be car racing, whether that's Formula One or sports cars or IndyCar. So everyone has a very high ambition here who's racing.
I gotta say, it was kind of a nice break to sort of chunk up the middle of the season with some nice weather and just a different sense of adrenaline. First few days were awesome, hot, sunny, humid, and you start to get a feel and the reputation for what's going on with the track and the karts. And then it just started, in typical Florida fashion, pouring rain. I had this obsession with skiing on red rocks in southern Utah for quite some time. I don't exactly know why, but it was just one of those places that just felt like such a huge juxtaposition of skiing and red rocks in the desert that my mind was just fixated on getting down there. At the base of Brian Head, I think you're sitting around 9,000 to like 92 or 9,300 feet above sea level. So before you even put your skis on, you're almost at the same elevation that you'd find at the top of Park City.
Olive oil's frozen again. Starting off the weekend here with a zucchini and onion
omelet with some turkey bacon on the side. So
for me, what made Brian Head really unique was the terrain. And not necessarily because it was super steep or had huge cliff drops, but as you're going down, you're able to look out on the red rocks of the desert and just see this extremely flat basin, it seems like, where you can see this road go on forever. But there's also all these little shrub trees that skiing through them just kind of made for this surreal experience. It weren't these huge glades that you were ripping through, but it was just a different type of skiing that I think is just so cool to be able to travel in a three hour radius of the Central Wasatch Mountains and get such different terrain while all still experiencing that amazing Utah snow. Just about like an hour away from Brian Head in a city called Beaver is a mountain called Eagle Point. And I think Eagle Point might have been the smallest mountain that I had ever been to.
this is the map for Eagle Point, guys. There's only 4 lifts that I see. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Although there's only one lift and terrain that wasn't really what you would find up in the Central Wasatch, there was still sort of an air of respect and just strength that I felt in a different way being on Eagle Point. The thing with heli skiing is that there are so many elements that go into actually making it work, and the actual skiing, the terrain part, is really just the icing on the cake. Now I remember driving up the canyon and just seeing some of the most low-hanging clouds that I had seen all winter, and just thinking to myself, this isn't normal. Like even on the worst of visibility days, at least the clouds are up higher. To see clouds that are so low and so socked into the mountains, I just hadn't seen it this year.
And unfortunately, due to weather, I don't think we're gonna be able to fly today, which is Saturday. Super unfortunate, but it's just something we can't control. There's actually some very low-hanging clouds, which is ultimately the worst-case scenario for trying to fly a helicopter just because of the visibility.
You can see just how socked in it is around here, and we can't even see Snowbird, which should be right there. So there's just no way we could be able to fly at all. But those would be the birds right there that we would be going out on. So hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to get out on them, but definitely not worth the chance or risk to try to go out right now.
While cat skiing isn't the same as helicopter skiing, cat skiing when there's 12 inches of fresh snow in Little Cottonwood Canyon, it's still hard to beat. I went home that night thinking, we'll fly tomorrow, We're gonna get locked out 2 days? Nah, there's no way we'll get locked out 2 days. Like one killer day of cat pow skiing and then a day of heli skiing, how bad could the weekend really be? And then you wake up the next morning and you drive up Little Cottonwood Canyon and you're sort of hit with like another dose of reality. Like, this is the mountains, and this is one of the most gnarliest sort of areas in all of Utah's Little Cottonwood Canyon Snowboard Alta. So I don't really think they care what the weather app is saying.
I would say conditions are pretty similar to what they were yesterday. A little bit windier, and I would say a little bit chillier, but visibility is kind of the same. Snow's kind of the same. Still wearing way too dark of lenses for this type of visibility, but you know, we maxing.
This is the backcountry, you guys. We're skiing in a snowcat, but nothing's marked. There's no ski patrol. You know, some of the things we really want to watch out for here are things like buried rocks.
You know, and I remember once it really hit about 12, 1 o'clock, and we were doing 1 or 2 more runs, I sort of just had to stomach the fact that, you know, we weren't getting up in the air. Even though the visibility opens up, even though the wind may die down, the next thing you're battling is just daylight. One of those weekends that really left me hungry for more, left me sort of with this sort of insatiable desire to get up in the air. I'm chomping at the bit. I am. I don't think that'll be fulfilled until I can get up in the air. So I'm hoping next season we'll be met with some better luck, and we'll be able to get up in a helicopter. There's really 2 main areas or resorts up in the Jackson area. There's this whole other zone essentially on the backside of the Tetons in a place called Grand Targhee. This weekend was particularly special because there was a storm coming. There was a storm up in Targhee, and so I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. And I never brought Luna into a proper snowstorm before, into an actual blizzard, trying to get up to a mountain. So I said, you know what, I could go through this whole season and never really feel like I'm chasing a storm, or I could just kind of go for it and see what happens.
We are about 4 miles out, and it is just absolutely dumping snow. The roads are just a mess, and there's just like a huge line of cars working our way up here. Oh, there's a shuttle bus that's stuck. Guys, this is pretty gnarly. There's just cars stuck left and right. Look at this. 3 cars stuck, a shuttle bus. Oh, this is gonna be a tight squeeze here. Oh my God. This is insane. And once we get up there, we are parking and just staying overnight until we leave. But this is gnarly.
Being up in the mountains for so many years, I think it's easy to get jaded to the dangers of skiing. In retrospect, I made a bad decision. I got a little bit too overconfident, overzealous, and I'm thankful it didn't end any worse. But it was one of those situations that I think will really change the way I see things. I remember thinking to myself, just do it, you know, just do it. You've been skiing all winter. You used to hit stuff like this all the time. Just do it. You know, what are you waiting for? Just commit. I remember the moment my ski clipped out and I knew it was over a very rocky cliff band, that I was going to be in trouble. I knew my only options were to try to get my feet in front of me and my head up so I could essentially prepare for the impacts to come.
Oh.
The sense of helplessness and sort of overwhelming feelings that came over me sitting down at the bottom of this slope, looking up at this massive cliff, calling for help and having no one be there, it sent a bigger message to me than just the fact that I had lost my ski. It really was just a big wake up call. When I woke up the next morning, I saw that Luna was buried up to about her wheel wells, and we had gotten about another 6 to 10 inches of snow. And I said, there's no way I'm gonna be in Targhee on a 6-inch powder day with the sun about to come out and not ski. So I figured, a proper powder day was exactly what the doctor had in store. Off the Targhee weekend, I just felt like it was a duty and an honor to be able to hike up what they call Mary's Nipple, and really get the full Targhee experience and be immersed into what that area has to offer. And it was a proper way to send off the weekend, and it was just a proper way to really pay my respects in regards to the power and majesty that the mountains truly hold. So I try to always cherish those last few days in March, and something that made this day even more special was the fact that my 60-year-old dad was with me. It is an extremely cool thing to still be able to ski with my dad at the level I do, with him being 60 years old. It's interesting to see how the times change, obviously, to where I remember always looking up to him as, wow, he's such a great skier, he's so fast, he knows how to get down anything, it seems like. And now as I get older and he gets older and I'm really coming into who I am as a skier, it's interesting to see how I feel like I'm almost more taking care of him on the mountain now and making sure he gets down okay, to where my whole life it's always been the inverse. Snowbird will always be that place that we both hold very near and dear to our hearts. And I think the fact that we were able to experience that together on a beautiful day up in the Wasatch Mountains made it even better. While there's a massive sense of urgency when it comes to skiing, whether that's trying to get the fresh tracks or progressing as quick as you can so you can hit that next cliff or that next park jump, I think there's also great things to be held in being patient and having a sense of prudence when it comes to being in the mountains. I think the actual journey of parking, the journey of figuring out how you're going to get to that zone you want to get to is what makes skiing so special. It's what makes skiing so timeless. And I think it's what makes skiing such an enjoyable and translatable thing really across the entire world.